Raymond, welcome to this podcast. Thank you for joining me. And we've had conversations outside of this podcast, and we just continue, but we're going to be more focused on this conversation.
I,
otherwise this could go here, there, and everywhere, and we could cover everything.
Stefan, I promise I will not get off topic unless I get off topic, unless you get off topic. Fair
Well,
enough.
you are the topic. So if I feel that you are taking us down a path that isn't relevant, then I'll have to pull you back.
I think that's a good. Stefan, I think that's a wonderful idea. I approve. I advocate that. Go ahead.
Good man. So my first question, always with all my guests, well, I've had two before you because this is brand new in regards to what I'm doing, apart from my TikTok lives, is where are you now? Where are you now in regards to your life journey?
Well, I'm in. Let me just also for your audience, I live in Washington State, not Washington D.C., but Washington State, which is the Pacific Northwest. And what is my, and my life journey has been, I've been in financial services, and I'm at the warning light stage of my life. I'm in my 70s, and my area, and so I've been in financial services. I've been in property management, but one way or another, it's dealing with finance or insurance or helping people with their financial lives. And the last decade and a half, I've been focused and involved and advocated caregiving plans for people so that when they need caregiving, that they have the funds so that they can make decisions about their caregiving. So that's my life in 15 seconds.
Yeah, I know. No, but where are you now? All right, you said, I love what you said. You said you're in the warning light stage of your life.
I'm probably nearing the warning lights.
What does that mean? What is the warning light?
Well, what I mean by that is, people, they'll say we're in your 70s, but you're 70 young, or, they give sort of these euphemistic, or you look so good.
Mhm.
Well, looking good is one thing, but most people eventually, you transition from an active lifestyle, things you're doing yourself, to that you're going to need, more assistance in your life, more help. I'll give you an immediate example. A couple of days ago, near your 70s in Washington State, it used to be that you could renew your driver's license online, and you didn't have to take a test, just pay the fee. But
Yeah.
now I had to actually go in person to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and that was also an ordeal too to even get the appointment. But the point is that the person said, "Do you want 6 years or 8 years?" I said, "What's the difference?" And obviously, you could say 2 years, but it had to do with if I wanted to spend more, I wanted to do the 8 years. And I said, "I'll do the 8 years because I don't know, maybe I'll be here, maybe I won't." But but the other thing that came to mind is that at some point, what happens if I'm not able to drive? Because unless I live, in the city or someplace that has, I could either walk or I have public transportation. Most people in America, you need transportation. Now, you can get Lyft and Uber. However, it's not spontaneous. I can't go to my car and get in. I then have to I have to wait for somebody. And that in a way is also caregiving. If for some reason you can't drive, or you can't because of vision or medications or things, you can't drive, that's going to make you feel very vulnerable because you can't go places. So what that means to me, and where I'm going with the story, is that at some point I'm going to have to depend on somebody else to take me places. That's good. And if I had that set up, if I thought about it, I mean, I can have my wife or my daughter do it, but maybe they may not be available when I'm available, or there may be some other situation, or there are people that are just on their own. This is one of the main things that happens is if you if something major changes in your life, driving, what are you going to do? What's your backup plan? Now, maybe I'll get lucky, and I've said this before, and it's sort of humorous, but it could be. Is it if I live long enough that they have self-driving cars, then then I don't care.
That's what I'm thinking about, is by the time I reach your age, hopefully they will have self-driving cars where you can literally on your phone, yeah, I need to be picked up and take me to this destination, or have something that I can just literally get in and it will take me. Come on, it's got to happen. It's got to happen, surely.
It'll happen, but I don't know if it'll be in my lifetime. Because look, I just bought a electric vehicle, and I, I sort of understood, or I suspected that I might have issues with it, and my suspect has um, been realized, is that I had to get a technician to come out to spend 2.5 hours, updating my electric vehicle, because it wasn't opening, and then when I put it in park, then even with my key fob, I couldn't get it to start. And that's concerning to me. If you can't get in your car and it's
Yeah.
cold, or usually you could put your key in, or you could do something, but there is no key. It's electronic, and so a lot of things weren't connected. So
Yeah.
what's happened is that our lives have shifted from manual or analog to digital and phones. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, my phone got blocked, and I panicked because if I wanted to get a coat, if I wanted to get anything, there was no way that I was helpless and vulnerable. So
Mm.
fortunately, the store was open, so I went, and they um, solved some of the problem. But this is how quickly you can go from self reliance to being vulnerable. Or Houston, I have a real problem here.
Yeah. And what came up for me while you were talking was the fact that here's someone that has been on that journey of giving plans out for the elderly, and now you're walking the walk. Before you were talking the talk and helping people, but now you're actually in it. How does that feel?
I hope it feels better, because I can tell these stories to help to get people to tell their stories. One of the things that happens, people don't like salespeople, or they think they don't like salespeople. Why? Because they think that all we're trying to do is manipulate them and get them to, spend their money. And that is a selling take, where you do it a different way. And I think we had a conversation about this before, is that I've become very involved in negotiating study and negotiating techniques, specifically with the Black Swan Group, um, headed by Chris Voss, who wrote a book called Never Split the Difference. And that's changed my thinking, where, um, where I'm fine to tell my story. But I'm not trying to relate to you. What I want to do is to get you to understand, you, the individual, you, the family, you, the company, that there are issues that that you need to understand about caregiving. It is going to happen. Death is going to happen. That's a certainty. But there are a lot of other things that go on in your life. And the other thing that is a misunderstanding, and I'll tell you, I believed it too for a long time, is that initially when these plans came out, they were called nursing home. People labeled it nursing home insurance.
Mm.
It's now expanded where, most caregiving is usually done at home or for long periods of time. And then people say, oh, yeah, they were at the care center. They were at the assisted living for 2 years. Yeah, but they might have been 6 or 8 years, at home, or gradually, needing caregiving. So that's why I advocate, is that I've been through this journey myself, and I know the issues, and I'm, been personally vulnerable and exposed in this, is to say that in your life journey, no matter what age, you need a plan, and you need to, test that plan to say, if this happens, how is this going to work out? And there are a lot of, it isn't that always the big things that you need to do. It's a lot of little things. What do I mean by little things? Little things are: learn how to save money, learn something about investing, learn about, what kind of insurance, learn about negotiating. I mean, that's a really good skill to know, besides, reading and arithmetic and all, is learn how to negotiate. It's not learning how to quibble and how to haggle and how to yell and scream. It's you need to learn how to negotiate because it'll affect everything that you do in your life. Be- Why? When you go for a job, what's there are two main issues. How much money are you going to pay me? And negotiation, or I mean, benefits. But it's much more than that because you need to ask, how is it that I can contribute to this company so that I can be involved in uh, um, 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 decisions and planning that will affect the company? That's a really good question because it lets somebody know that you're really in the game, that you're really interested. It isn't just how much. What are you going to pay me for something to do? But there are all a lot of little things too. I mean, if I go off topic on it, one of the things that sometimes they will interviewers, and depending what level you are in your career, they will test you with little things like they'll take you to lunch or they'll take you out to a sporting event or something. And it isn't that this is the scene. They're testing you to see what's your behavior.
Mm.
How do you deal with people? If and sometimes they'll do it. They'll order something or a drink or a meal, and they'll see how you behave. Or if, the usual thing is on the golf course, but they'll say, what's your mental health about this? Do you lose composure? Do you yell at people? Or are you calm? How do you treat people? And it's a great test to say if we're going to have you in this company and you're going to lose your temper or you're going to be rude and disrespectful to people, we're not going to hire you. I mean, there are little tests too. Sometimes they'll ask the receptionist if they still have, a live receptionist. They'll ask them, say, when the person came in, how were you treated? What? And so these are a lot of, life tests and negotiating skills that if you learn them, this will get you traction in your life. Not only personally, because, you know, they always say also about selling. People say, "Well, I'm not a salesperson." You're not a salesperson. If you have a relationship, if you have children, if you're at the airport, trust me, you're negotiating. You're selling, or people are asking you for things. You are in a negotiation. You are selling yourself, or you want somebody to do something for you. How are you going to do it?
Absolutely. No, what you said is beautiful in regards to how people show up and what they're looking for, what employers are looking for. They're not just you showing up, you answering a few questions and then walking away. Is that you have to show up with that full energy, that curiosity, that willingness to be part of a team, that to show them that you've done the research, that you are interested in the company and what they're about and what else you can offer. So when they're sitting down, they're like, you stand out in a way that others aren't showing up. And what you just said, they're looking at everything. It's not just whether you can reel off a few key words and then go, oh, yeah, he knows what he's talking about. Oh, yeah, we got to hire him. No, they're looking for so much more. They're looking at the team that we have. How will he fit in with the team that we've already got? Will he add value to that team rather than just, oh, because he's got the right information, he might not be able to communicate in the right way just because he's putting across the right information. So
Hmm.
what I want to, while you were talking, what I want to do now, because you kind of revealed of where you're standing now, is what have you learned on your own journey?
What if I learned in my own journey? Do you have some examples of what you think?
Well, what key things have you gone, you know what? Either I wish I knew back then and you've learned something and you've taken that on your journey, or you went through something and that gave you the wisdom to go, you know what? I I will share this or I will use this moving forward. What anything that stands out for you?
Let me just give you four things that I would suggest to other people, and I'll go into things that I've learned because some of what I'm going to say is also things that I needed to learn or didn't know. Young people need to know something about investing and saving. They need to, not an economic, but how do you save? How do you invest? Because think of yourself as a business, and how are you going to organize your life that you can be self-sustaining? And so you need to learn, and get in the habit of learning how to invest, and taking, courses or YouTube or community college courses, however, or, hire, wealth or financial advisors. Once you've accumulated enough that can help you, with your assets. The other is that people need to learn how to, and be better informed how to buy insurance, because insurance is important, because it transfers risks and it does a lot of really good things. People don't always think it is, because if the insurance company doesn't pay, or you buy something and they say, well, it doesn't cover that, and people are annoyed and say, well, I'll never buy that, or they're all terrible. So you need to learn about how to buy insurance, what insurance does, what it doesn't do, um, and and also, about banking, how to open up a bank account, and, a checking account. Um, and another area, and this is what we haven't talked, is that as early as you can, and this is where I really regret, and I told Chris Foss when I was in an interview with him, that I wish I had known in my teens and 20s, how to negotiate, the tools of negotiating, because I've made, some severe mistakes where, I just would pop off, or I would write, because we didn't have internet and text, so I'd write a letter, and I'd be upset, and I'd say exactly what I thought, and that was not helpful to me. I mean, it was helpful that I wrote the letter. There's a story. Harry Truman would write letters or write notes, and then put it in his desk drawer,
Mm.
and then but then he wouldn't send it, but it would allow him to, you know, write out his feelings and just get out his emotions. One time he did do that, where a critic, a music critic, was not kind to his daughter. She wanted to be an opera singer, so he wrote a an inappropriate letter, and that that did not help his image. I mean, he was annoyed. He was, being a parent to his daughter Margaret, and he was expressing, his support and feeling and love for Margaret. But politically, it was not good. It just shows that he lost his composure, he lost his temper.
Wow. Yeah. So that was 4 pointers that you've learned, or that you can give, but what about you personally?
Well, personally, I mean, look, I've made financial mistakes. I've invested in things that didn't turn out well. I've trusted people that I didn't, weren't always honorable. You buy things. You try things, you rely on things, and sometimes it doesn't work out. And so, some of it is also that you just need to have resilience, and it may be hard to say, well, I get over it or move on. Um, but sometimes you need a mourning period, in order to build some resilience. However, it's at some point, you have to leave that behind. You have to not be angry about it. It happened. It's annoying. It's disappointing. Uh, but sort of go through that grief period, go through those moments, and also, look at there's it isn't inappropriate, to talk to your loved ones and say, look, I've gone through this, and, I did this, and I'm really, disappointed about that. It's not just, oh, I'm being honest. It's,
Mm.
I'm being sincere. I want you to understand, that I've done things, and I'm disappointed about it, or to seek, a mental health professional. Whether it's, you want it faith based, or whether you want it where, it's a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I've said for years, especially, Americans need a lot of mental health, and they need to be talking to people. because we're all living in 21st century of a lot of stress, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety, and to have that conversation with people that will help you to understand what's happening and to put things in perspective. That's helped me. But that doesn't mean I still don't get disappointed. I still don't get frustrated. I mean, last night we were at a restaurant and the noise level was so high that I am affected by high noise level. I mean, in other words, when I go to a concert, I have to wear earplugs,
Mm.
or it affects me psychologically, and actually sometimes physically. I am affected. But in American restaurants or in a lot of places, people are just very loud. And I don't know why, but they are, and that that does affect. In fact, interesting. I asked my wife. I said, look, it seems to be loud. It seems like they're having, all these loud conversations. And my wife is a wise person, which is why when I think that I have the most appropriate, I've thought things out. I have the greatest idea. It is wonderful. And then I'll go to higher authority, my wife or my daughter, and I'll say, well, "This is what I'm thinking." And sometimes say it's the stupidest idea, or have you thought about this? And I'll say, gee, I hadn't thought about it that way, which, then I have to, rework my plan. And that's fine because I don't feel, then I feel understood and I don't
Mm.
feel embarrassed to say, that they have my interest. We have, as a family, have our best interests. We trust each other. We love each other, and we listen, and we try our best to understand. Sometimes it isn't always at the right moment. Sometimes you have to change the moment where you really understand. People think you have to do something in the moment. It's called the confrontation.
Mm.
I gotta let you know now. Sometimes it is better to let people calm down, get their endorphins and their emotions in order to really listen. And when I say listen, that's also overused. It isn't just listening, it's really understanding. And I'll give you an example. People, you say to your kid, you hear what I say, yeah, yeah, yeah. You listen, yeah, yeah, yeah. You hear what I'm doing, yeah, yeah, yeah. But if
Mm.
you ask them a question like, it seems that what I'm saying hasn't been understood. That's different. Now they have to give you a response. They can't give you the yeah, 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 or I hear you, because I want people, and when I'm consulting, I want people to understand, the issues involved with what I do, and that takes practice and a skill level. And I'm not trying to manipulate people. I really am not. I mean, it may seem like I am, but if you think that if you just say, well, Raymond Levine is just a salesperson, I'm trying to manipulate you. How am I manipulating you if I ask you a question like, it seems like you're in a hurry to do this. It seems like I'm not being, that this isn't what you're looking for, because then I can find out what is it that I understand about you. What is it? What is the story that you want to tell me?
Mm.
Because a lot of people, that first talk to me, and it's human nature. I mean, I do it myself. Is to say, do I trust you? And so, people will test you. I mean, going back to, meals or how you treat people. It's a thing of, do I trust you enough to tell you my story, how I'm feeling about something? And if I do, then I can, then I have to make a decision. Can I help you? It's the same, when you go to the lawyer, the doctor, the accountant, your family. Is that they want to? They're going to ask and want information. How honorable are you going? What are you going? What story are you going to tell them? Um, because a lot of these people and your family, they know the game. They know they have an understanding of who you are. Just like when you go to the doctor, I mean, if you want to, when I go to my doctor for whether I'm ill or a physical, I write a memo, and I don't just say, "Oh, I'm feeling great. Life is wonderful." No, I write a memo to say, "Here's what I think is going on in my life. Here's my weight issues, or here are the things that I'm thinking about." So I write a report. I hand it to them and I say, "I'd like you to read this," and then so that, I'm not here for the dental plan, or I'm here because I want, advice about, my physical health. In fact, I say to my doctor, "Vincent, you wanna know what your job is? Your job is to keep me alive and as healthy as possible." I mean, I'm that blunt, but, in order to do that, don't say to your lawyer, "I didn't do it," or don't say to your dentist, "I didn't brush your teeth." You know, I'll give you another when, I've been dealing with computers since, the '80s. First computer we had was an Epson computer, great computer, floppy disk, but the point of this to speed along is that if I make a change, if I do something and then call my, a technical support person, I confess my sins. And what I mean by confessing my sins is said, I did this and this is what happened. So that it helps, it makes it faster rather than say, I didn't do anything.
No,
Is
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
and same with, my accountant, my wealth advisor, my, lawyer, my dentist. If they say, "Did you brush your teeth?" Yes. "When did you br" I mean, it may seem, but, th there are ways of, as it used to say in the movie, we have ways of finding out.
Mm. While you were talking, what came up in my mind is I'm curious about that Raymond that was starting out in life. If you look back, if you were able to walk beside him now, that younger Raymond, and all the different things that happened in your life, how have you seen him change over time? And was it before you tell me, have you seen a change in how you've shown up for yourself, for your family, and for your clients over the years? The more you kind of got to know you as a human being?
Well, there are 3 personalities that, the Black Swan. There's the, facilitator, there's the assertive, person, and the accommodator. And I always thought I was, an assertive because I would get impatient. And
Yeah.
I think that probably more of my personality is really accommodated. That's where most people are. There are the assertive and the analysts, but most people are accommodating. And why? Because rather than having a confrontation, let's say, "Oh yeah, we'll go along with that." But there are different ways of how you deal with it, and I think learning negotiating skills that you learn, yeah, and you get an idea of how somebody is coming at you, and that is a great I will that is a great skill I wish I'd known early on, is how to deal with people that are at me and not have a confrontation. But, I mean, simple things like, somebody will say, "What are you doing this weekend?" And, you don't wanna necessarily get caught up in a commitment, say, "What makes you ask?" Or, sometimes, every day people ask me, "How am I? What am I doing?" I'll say, "Well, it seems like, you have something in mind that you wanna tell me." But also, do it in reverse, go to when you're in an interaction to say, "It seems like you're having a good day," they'll tell you, "Yeah, it's going well. No, no, it isn't." And those are skills that, you know, are helping me even my older age that, if I'd known it, younger, I would have I maybe to summarize, I would have handled the situation differently because I would have had the skill set of not just to answer their question, but to understand, what is it they want to know? Maybe they really don't want to know anything. And the other, actually, I was thinking about that too, is that one of the um, subjective things that we don't always know is we don't always know what somebody else is going through. So if
Mhm.
somebody is doing something to me, I don't know what they're going through. Maybe they had an argument. Maybe they having a financial issue. Maybe they were told they have 10 days to live. So you never know, or people are just in a hurry. And so try to think of, what's happening in somebody's other perspective to say, well, they cut me off or they did that is, just to think, maybe they're having an issue, and so they're so absorbed with that, they're taking it out on others that they're abrupt. So it usually isn't personal. It's there's something. So maybe you might, that's what I'm saying. The Jess, seems like you're having some issues. Don't have to analyze it. And they'll say, "Oh, nothing's wrong," or "Yeah, I had some something happen, and thanks for asking." But it isn't just "How are you?" So again,
Yeah.
these are skills that make me hopefully a better person, a more understanding person, and also somebody that has skills to know how to deal with life's issues. Because a lot of it isn't just that something is happening. Most of it is, now what am I going to do? If my electric vehicle doesn't work, I have to figure out, how am I going to solve this? So I have, my phone number. It's also something too. I've, where a lot of things that we do, we have on our phone. It's all digital. And I've made a modification of that. There are certain things now I do in written form so that I don't have to look at, what's the phone number? So I keep the phone number in my car, say, if this doesn't work or how to adjust this, I have the phone number so that I can call them rather than, to go into my file system that I may or may not be able to find. Or here's another, sometimes I might be so agitated and so upset that, I'm going through this and I'm just not thinking straight. But if I have it in written form, say, yeah, I have this paper, you know, there's the phone number, there's the answer. So
Yeah.
I practice redundancy.
Well, that was going to be my final question, was how are you preparing yourself as you're moving forward, and how does that look for you?
Well, several ways. Interesting you asked that question. One of the things that we're doing is we're going through a home refreshing, and we're updating things both for home modifications. And, we've made a decision that we want, no matter what happens, as long as we can, to stay in our house and not go to, a retirement village or something else. I'm not a retirement village material. People say that, if you've been in, many different relationships or different marriages, maybe examine yourself. Maybe you're really not relationship material.
Mm.
And I just, I know from my own behavior, I'm not retirement village or care center material. And maybe it will change. But the point is that we're
Yeah.
refreshing we have, home modifications so that no matter what happens, that we can stay at our home, and we have sufficient, support system funds to pay for caregivers to help us with things that we, can't do, cannot do now and in the future. The other thing that I'm also is, we're doing, updating our estate plan, and also I'm getting my important documents in order, both digitally and in files, and letting my family know, where things are located, because that's the worst thing that happens in a family issue. Somebody becomes ill, you don't even know what their social security number is. You don't know
Yeah.
what health information. I mean, some basic thing, but then it goes on to, um, do I know your accounts that I can pay your bills? And I used to be, it was easy. You got the information in the mail. Now it's paperless. So do you have the
Mm.
password? So I now have a digital service that I'm updating information so that my family, if I'm not able to do it, that they can go and get, the passwords, and they have the documents, and they know where my um, medical information. A lot of people, have, hi, here's my phone. No, I don't have that I have in physical form. I have it in my wallet where, that I could show people. I just don't have the patience to say, "Oh, let me look on my phone." That's just not. A lot of people do, and they're good at it. And I'm not. And if it works, but the thing is, supposing you forget your phone, or supposing your phone isn't
Mm.
working, I, I- I'm I'm a backup person. It's just that's just how I deal with it. Because if not, sometimes it'll give me personal anxiety if I can't, because information, especially in this day and age, is important. If you want to get into most sites these days, it isn't just you can't just get into it. You got to get a code, and it goes to your phone or it goes to your email. And then it can still be redundant. Hi, we've done this now. Now we need more. I'll give you an example. When you call, I forgot who I was calling about some issue, and I went through this telephone tree, and I said, customer service. So I put in all, your this information, that information. So you put in all this information, and then when you get to the person, they ask the same information all over
Yeah.
again. So what was the what was the point? And in some ways, it was better that you could, call up and get customer service and
Mm.
talk to somebody, because uh, some things just can't be answered. At least on the telephone tree or through artificial intelligence. Sometimes, you just need to explain. I've got this issue. I need, wave your magic hands. This is what I need, and sometimes they can. Now, there's another hand. Sometimes if you're talking to somebody, they're just not working with you, and you think all is lost, hang up the phone, wait 5 minutes, call again. You'll probably get somebody else that can help you. Sometimes, I would say, 50, 60, 70% of the time it works.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Raymond. That is, we've come to the end of the show. I really appreciate your wisdom and allowing us to walk beside you and where you are now, and giving us an insight into your journey up until now and how you're preparing yourself moving forward.
You know,
It's beautiful. Thank you.
my pleasure, Stefan. It's been a pleasure.
No, thank you. Thank you for giving me the time. Thank you for reaching out, and let us touch base in the future. Let's walk beside you, and for us to see how it is and where you're going.
Be my pleasure, Stefan.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to catching up with you in the next episode. Thank you very much.